As of now, we are showing lessons on the course details page that are not related to this course. Because as you can see in the template, we are executing the query to fetch first 20 records from the lessons table, but those lessons are not related to a particular course. So now we're going to bind each record from the lessons table to a particular record from the courses table, and we're going to bind those records by using identifiers. So we'll create additional column inside lessons table called course ID that is going to store value of the course identifier that particular lesson belongs to. So first of all, I'm going to open up lessons migration, and right here, let's write the following. We're going to add new column called course ID that is going to be positive number, and since we want this column to only contain values that exist inside courses table, specifically inside ID column, we're gonna have to assign so-called foreign key to this column, and to do so in Laravel, let's call method foreign and specify column name to which we are attaching foreign key. And then additionally we'll have to specify the column and the table which we are binding values from course ID column. In this case, we are attaching every record from the lessons table to a specific record from the courses table. And that's how we are connecting values from the course ID column of the lessons table to values from the ID column of the courses table. And please note, I could have also used new migration to add this additional course ID column to lessons table, but in this case I decided to modify existing migration. We will have to rerun this migration again, so I'm going to run migrate fresh to create database structure once again. And now let's try to create record inside lessons table and see if database is going to allow us to add this record, since there are currently no records inside courses table. But as you can see in here, we are referencing course with identifier of 1. As you can see, it does not allow us to create this record, because first of all we have to create parent record inside courses table and only then attach lessons to that course. So let's try it out. I'm gonna switch over to courses table and create one record in this table. And after this, let's try to save these two records in the database. And this time database allowed us to save those records, because we are satisfying foreign key constraints and referencing course with an identifier of 1 inside lessons table. There is also this little arrow which indicates that this record is related to the record from another table, and we will click on this arrow, we'll see the related record from the courses table in this case. But of course, if I'm going to manually modify this identifier and specify the identifier of a non-existent course, database is not going to allow us to make this change. And that is the point of using foreign key constraints. It helps us to maintain data integrity. But as you can see, we had to call several methods to add foreign key constraints, which is why Laravel has alternative syntax to add foreign key constraints. Let's use it right now. In this case, we're going to call foreign ID and specify the column name to which we are attaching foreign key constraint. And then let's call constraint method like this. And we're going to get the same result as when we were getting before when executing two previous lines. Alright, let's run migrations once again and make sure that there will be no errors. As you can see, it worked. But you may ask, how did Laravel know to which table to bind this column? And Laravel actually parses column name and extracts first part of the column name and turns it into plural form. In this case, the parent model will be called courses. But if you are not following the standard conventions and want to specify the parent table manually, you can do so by passing the first argument into constraint method, like this. Here we are using the named argument called table. So let's try to run migrations once again, switch over to the database, in here I'm going to quickly create two records, one inside courses table and one inside lessons table, and bind these two records by using foreign key. And another thing about these foreign key constraints is that we won't be able to remove the parent record when having some child records in the database. As you can see, the database is throwing an error. And also we can't actually modify the identifier of the course because it is used in foreign key constraint. But we can actually specify what to do in such cases when we are trying to remove the parent record from the database and when we're trying to modify the value that is used in foreign key constraint. So if you're going to call method onUpdate and specify parameter cascade, in this case, when we're going to modify the identifier of the parent record, it is going to allow us to do that because it will also modify the identifier used in the child record that is related to this parent record. And also, if we're going to call onDelete and specify value cascade, in this case, when we're going to remove the parent record, the child records connected to that parent record will also be deleted. Alright, now let's re-execute migrations in order to have our new foreign key configuration to take effect. And let's create a couple of records inside database and attach them to each other. So in this case, if I'm going to try to remove the parent record, which is a course record, we'll see that the record from the lessons table has been also deleted. Alright, let's try it one more time. I'm going to quickly add those same records in the database and attach them to each other by using foreign key. And now if I'm going to modify the identifier of the course, in this case, the identifier that is used inside the lessons record will also be modified, as you can see. So this connection between two records is not actually lost when modifying identifier from the parent record. And by the way, there is one more way how we can assign foreign key constraint, so let's review it right now. In this case, I'm going to call method foreignID4, and instead of specifying column name manually, we can use model to which we are attaching records from this lessons table. In this case, the model is course. And Laravel, based on this model name, is going to determine how the column should be called, which is going to hold foreign key. So it's going to take model name, lowercase it, and add underscore ID. And this way it will determine the name of the foreign key column on the child table. And also we can use alternative syntax to determine what is going to happen when we're about to update the identifier on the parent row. Instead of calling method onUpdate and specify an additional argument cascade, we can do it all at once by simply calling method cascade onUpdate. And the same thing goes with deletion. In this case, we're calling cascade onDelete. Let's rerun migration and see how this is going to work. Let's add a couple of records in the database once again, attach those two records, and if I'm going to change the identifier of the course inside course ID column of the lessons table, I'm specifying in here the identifier that does not exist, and database does not allow us to do this change. But if I'm gonna go ahead and delete the record from the courses table, sure enough, the record from the lessons table will also be removed. Looks like it is all working, but actually if we'll try and run our seeders to populate database with random data, we're going to face the following error, which is happening inside course seeder when we are trying to remove all records from the courses table on this line. And before fixing this, let's actually open up lesson factory, and since we have previously added new column inside lessons table called course ID, here I'm going to specify which value has to be assigned to this column when calling this factory. I'm going to randomly select one record from the courses table by calling the following methods in random order, and then to execute this query, I'm going to call first to get only the one record, and then we can either reference column ID to extract value from the ID column and assign to courses ID column, or we can leave it as is, and Laravel is simply going to take the identifier of the found course record for us automatically and assign it to course ID column. And now back to that problem related to removing all the records from the courses table. And since now every record from the courses table will be related to records from the lessons table, when truncating courses table we have to temporarily disable foreign key checks. And in this case I'm going to disable those foreign key checks for all seeders at once. And for that, let's open up database seeder and wrap this statement into the following method call without foreign key constraints on the schema class. And then if we're going to pass the callback into this method, everything that this callback is going to contain will be executed with foreign key checks disabled. The schema class has to be also imported from eliminate support facades namespace. And this time, if we're going to execute migrations along with seeders, we're not gonna get any errors and the database will be successfully populated with random data. So in this lesson we have learned how to create foreign key constraints.